Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a story defined by, well, absolutely breathtaking irony. We're going to explore one of the most spectacular feats of engineering in all of Europe. It's a project that tyrants and emperors literally spent 2,500 years dreaming about. And yet, the very day it finally opened, it was already a failure. From above, it genuinely looks like the earth was just split open with a knife. You've got these pale rock walls plunging nearly 90 meters straight down to this tiny, razor-thin ribbon of turquoise water. It's so unbelievably narrow that a single small ship barely inches its way through, completely dwarfed by the sheer cliffs on either side. This is the Corinth Canal. It is cinematic, it's incredibly dramatic, and it's a canal the world spent millennia wanting, only to abandon it almost overnight. Section 1. The Neck of Greece, a geographic temptation. Let's get right into it. The sheer scale of the geographical problem here is staggering. Think about the southern part of Greece, the Peloponnese. It's essentially an island hanging by a thread. That thread is the Isthmus of Corinth, which is just a few kilometers wide. Now, for a sailor trying to get across, that meant a massive 700-kilometer detour sailing all the way around the entire peninsula. But if you could just slice a 6.3-kilometer cut straight across that narrow neck of land, boom, you save all of that time and all of that danger. This geographic temptation stared Greek sailors right in the face for 3,000 years. I mean, they were so close to the sea on either side, they could almost literally see across it. The only thing in their way was the rock. Which brings us to Section 2, Ancient Ambitions, Millennia of Failure. This dream actually started way back around 600 BC with Periander, the tyrant of Corinth. Now, he wisely realized Bronze Age tools just couldn't cut solid rock, so he built the Diolkos. It was this paved stone trackway where boats were hoisted onto wheeled cradles and literally dragged overland by gangs of men and oxen. Seriously, for centuries, ships crossed Greece on wheels. Then Rome decided to think bigger. In 67 AD, Emperor Nero strikes the ground with a golden pickaxe in this huge grand ceremony and then forces 6,000 Judean prisoners of war to dig by hand. They made it about 700 meters before Nero died, and the whole project was just abandoned to the weeds. Fast forward to 1882. It took 19th century steam power and dynamite, led by Hungarian general István to finally resume the work. But the rock was so insanely hard, it bankrupted his company, the bank behind it, and absolutely ruined Tur himself financially. Finally, a Greek company took over the wreckage, and in 1893, after 2,500 years of trying, the canal opened. Water finally flowed through the neck of Greece. Section 3. Born Obsolete. The Tragic Triumph. 24.5 meters. I really want you to take a second and think about that number. At the surface, the Corinth Canal is astonishingly narrow, just 24.5 meters wide. And the real tragedy here is that this canal was designed and dug over decades. But the world, it didn't wait around. When the plans were first drawn up, sailing ships were small. They could easily fit. But by the time the canal actually opened in 1893, the age of massive steel steamships had already arrived. Those new ships were already wider than 24.5 meters. And here is the fatal flaw of cutting a gorge through solid rock. You can't just widen it. The fixed dimensions of the canal were permanently set in stone, right as the global shipping industry outgrew them. The planners, they were originally anticipating around 4 million tons of cargo a year to pass through this incredible shortcut. But by 1906, it was carrying barely 500,000 tons. The numbers just plummeted. And why? Because this great shortcut was built for a world that had, quite literally, already sailed away from it. Moving on to Section 4, Geopolitics of Power. A useless choke point. A choke point only matters if it cannot be bypassed. Now, when you look at the Suez Canal or Panama or the Strait of Malacca, those waterways dictate global power because ships absolutely must use them. If you close them down, global trade just seizes up completely. But Corinth, it never truly held that kind of power. Why? Because you can always just sail around the Peloponnese. Sure, it's a 700-kilometer detour, but it is entirely possible. And that brings us to the concept of leverage. Leverage is the geopolitical power a waterway holds when global ships have absolutely no alternative route. The very second the Corinth Canal became too small for modern ships, it lost whatever leverage it might have had. It became proof of a hard, unforgiving geopolitical rule. It's not enough to simply be a shortcut. You have to be an unavoidable shortcut. Without that leverage, a waterway stops shaping geopolitics entirely. It just becomes a curiosity. Section 5. The Rock Fights Back. A Crumbling Monument. You see, the most spectacular feature of the canal, those breathtaking 90-meter sheer walls, is actually its greatest weakness. The rock there is incredibly unstable. Starting in late 2020, massive landslides sent literal tons of rock crashing down into the water below, forcing a complete shutdown. Engineers spent massive amounts of money just trying to stabilize the walls. They reopened it in the summer of 2022, allowing just 6,000 small vessels through, only to have to close it again by autumn. It reopened in 2023, closed in October, and then reopened again in 2024. Today, the canal does not run like a reliable artery of commerce. It runs in seasonal windows. Honestly, it's become a monument that requires constant, desperate patching just to survive its own geography. So, what is the Corinth Canal actually for in the modern world? While the trade numbers are basically a rounding error at this point, so its value has entirely shifted to the sheer experience of it. It's a completely absurd, ironic modern fate. Today, small cruise ships and yachts pay to slowly thread the gorge, while passengers stare up at walls taller than a 20-story building. Tens of thousands of tourists gather on the high bridges just to snap photographs of this impossible slot of water. Adrenaline seekers literally bungee jump off the bridges into the canyon. Think about it. A project that ancient emperors bled prisoners to attempt, a project meant to be the ultimate artery of commerce, has ended up as a bucket list spectacle and a work of art. Section 6, the final lesson, conquering too late. Turns out, building the marvel isn't actually the hard part. Building the right marvel, at the exact right time, in the right size, that is what truly matters. Corinth conquered its map, sure, but it conquered it a few decades too late. So it makes you wonder, are the marvels we're designing today being built for a world that will still exist when we actually finish them? Because the map you're trying to conquer may have already changed while you were busy digging. It's a powerful reminder that while human ambition is limitless, true power goes to those who build for the future, not just the present. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.